Hey, folks. We are continuing the conversation about Tap Untap Key. Tap Untap Burn Elemental Key. This is a mostly unscripted conversation, walkthrough of different mechanics and components of this new book that's now on DMsGuild. We can see it is here on DMsGuild, $2.99. You can purchase it in the Color Mechanics, the Color Mana Spell Point bundle, linked down below in the doobly-doo. It's a third off. All these books are a third off if you buy the bundle. And so we're just going to take a little time here and have a conversation about Devoted Key. So the last conversation that we had, the initial conversation that we had, the first segment in the playlist that this is linked into. There is a conversation about mana paradigms, the difference between the 8 schools of magic, elemental key, the 4 element magic paradigm, and the 5 color magic paradigm. So this book implements the option of choosing either the generic key that's in the player's handbook, which is just key is key, and you spend key to activate disciplines and use different abilities that the monk requires key as a resource to use. But then alternatively, you can use elemental magic paradigm, in which when you use a devotion, it's being depicted as either an air magic or earth magic or fire magic or water magic. And then if instead you wanted to use the 5 color magic paradigm, it would be depicted as either blue magic, red magic, or green magic, depending on which discipline you're using. Like, for example, Create or Destroy Water is a water discipline, but in Magic the Gathering, that would be a blue or possibly green magic discipline. So far in our conversations, we've only discussed the narrative behind color magic. What does it feel like to depict using these different magic paradigms instead of just generic 8 schools of magic that's in the player's handbook of Dungeons and Dragons? But the tap untap burn mechanics that are prevalent throughout the color mana spell point variant rules that are in these different books has a lot of mechanical options that you can either choose to use or not, but they're very interesting. So I wanted to go over, starting in this segment, just going over the very basics of spending key devoted to the type of magic your discipline is using. So let's go ahead and just take a look here. In our last conversation, we talked about being a prepared spellcaster as a monk instead of learning a very limited number of disciplines as you gain levels. At 17th level in the player's handbook, you would only have 4 disciplines that you know, and you would spend just generic key to cast them whenever you want. Elemental key in this book introduces the idea of, similar to a paladin, you would prepare the disciplines that you know each day, and when you prepare them, you would choose, am I going to be like focused just in being just an airbender, or am I going to be an avatar that can use all 4 elements? If I'm playing in Strixhaven and I wanted to be a Quandrix monk, would I want to focus specifically on blue magic, green magic, or would I want to be able to have both of them? Some like, for instance, Pass Without Trace is green only. As opposed to, say, Hold Person is a blue magic discipline, and some of them are both, such as Fist of Unbroken Air, which is both blue and green. So in that case, you could depict it as either or both. But those are just strictly narratives. It's just flavor that goes into the spells and disciplines that you're able to use as a monk. But if you are using if you're using devoted key, it's different. And so when we look at using, and I'll go into that here real quick. Again, this is largely unscripted, so forgive me if I'm a little stumbly. But the costs in the for the monk listed in here has basically a first level discipline is 2 key, a second level discipline is 3 key, and up to a 5th level discipline is 6 key, and that's a little wonky. What we've done is we've simplified it, to make it a little more generous for monks to use these spells and not burn through your ki as quickly, so that you can actually do more with it. But also it makes the math really easy for us. A 1st level spell costs 1 ki. A 2nd level spell costs 2 ki. A 3rd level spell costs 3 ki. 4th, 4, 5th, 5. That's just super easy. It gives you a little bit more generosity, and I've been using this for years myself at my own table. It's not unbalancing. It's fine because the amount, because monks are so starved for ki in the first place. This is actually a good quality of life improvement for them. But it actually has a lot of significance. When you are using devoted ki, you are adding a layer of mechanical depth to spell casting that doesn't normally exist inside of Dungeons & Dragons 5e. The Player's Handbook describes ki as just generic. You have ki points, and you can use that ki to cast any spell use any key feature or ability that you possess. And it doesn't really matter. It's just you just burn through all your ki, and then you get it all back on a short or a long rest. But when you are given so many additional disciplines to prepare instead of learn, it is a considerable bump in power. So there's a fun mechanic that we have in Tap Untap Burn, and I'm going to jump over to Roll20, where online we can use the tools that are there in the virtual tabletop to stand alone as a resource for us to use. So this mana play sheet is in the back of the book, and it's also provided separately as a document, as separate PDFs, as well as a digital asset that you can either load into your own VTT or that you can print out and use at your table. And it's the flow chart here makes it easy for you to maintain mana. So when you use devoted ki, you're not only choosing which disciplines you want to prepare that day, you're also choosing how much of each element you're adding to your ki pool to cast those disciplines and those spells. So as we see here, the rules are super simple. It's like it shows in the book here. If you're using a 3rd level discipline, it takes 3 ki to cast that spell. If you don't have 3 ki, you can't cast it. You have to wait until you regain your ki. Well, let's find a third level spell that's fun to use. Fireball. Fireball is pretty iconic. Fireball requires 3 ki to cast, and it is devoted to red. So if you're using the variant devoted ki mechanic, what happens is when you cast Fireball, you need 3 mana, and you can see here in the elemental paradigm, there's air, earth, fire, and water, and you can see here a 10th level character that has access to 3rd level spells has 10 ki, and you can see here that the ki, there's 10 ki here, but it's been divided into air, earth, fire, and water ki. So what happens if you want to cast Fireball? You have to burn 3 ki to be able to cast that spell, and it's gone until you finish a short rest or a long rest to get it back. So to cast a fire spell such as Fireball, you have to have fire mana. We have fire mana here. So you have 1 fire mana. You only need 1 mana to cast a spell, but you still have to have 3 ki total, right? So you have 1 fire ki, and then the other 2 ki could be anything that you want. Considering how we have the mana distributed right now, for you to be able to maximize your opportunities, in this example, you'd probably want to go with 1 fire to qualify for casting a fire spell. And then since you have extra air and water, you could then spend 1 point of air and 1 point of water, and you spend those ki, and then you cast Fireball, and now you have 7 ki left. But you notice you only have 1 fire, you have 2 water, 2 earth, and 2 air left. So this flexibility that you're getting from knowing potentially 15 disciplines at 17th level. Hey, thanks a lot for showing up, bot. I appreciate your spam. to be able to utilize all of these features, you have to consider how many air disciplines do I know, how many earth disciplines have I prepared, how many fire disciplines have I prepared, how many water disciplines have I prepared. And if the more diverse options I want, the more spread out my key pool becomes. So if I want to cast, let's say I prepared Pass Without Trace today. Pass Without Trace is an earth spell. So if I want to cast Pass Without Trace, I need to burn 2 ki. It's a 2nd level spell. So I have to spend at least 1 earth. And now if I want to keep my options open, I'm going to, again, have to choose either water or air. So let's say air sounds like the easiest one for me to. Let's say I see the least opportunities for me to need another air spell. So I'm going to use the 1 point of earth to access earth magic, and then I'm going to fill in the rest of the key requirements with whatever mana is most convenient for me. Here we're talking air. So I cast Pass Without Trace. And there you go. I am now down 2 more mana. So I now only have 5 mana left. And you can see I have 1 point of air, I have 1 point of earth, I have 1 point of fire, and I have 2 points of water left. So if I wanted to cast Fireball again, I can. Again, Fireball is going to require I spend 1 fire key to be able to access fire magic. And now I'm having to start making hard choices. I can spend a point of water, but I'm still short a point of key. So let's say I don't think there's going to be any likelihood of me casting. I don't see myself using any more air today. So I'm going to go ahead and use air. And I figure if I need it, maybe I have a utility in air only, like fly or something. I don't have to have it for combat, but it'd be useful for overland movement or getting through obstacles or something. So maybe it's realistic that I use air right now, and I can get it back on a short rest. So I burn my 3 ki, I've cast Fireball, and I'm down to just 2 mana. And I can no longer cast any fire spells or any air spells until I take a short or long rest. But when I do, when I take my short rest and I finish it, or I take my long rest and I finish it, I can now swap out all of my mana to be any color that I want. I could, for instance, take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fire, and say, what do I got here? Earth. I got 1, 2. I got 2 pieces of earth here, so that's 7. And then maybe I'm finding that I don't need water. I don't need fire at all today. So let's go with. Or I don't need any more air today. So instead, let's go with water. So now I've changed my pool after a short rest to have 2 earth key, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fire key, and 1, 2, 3 water key. So obviously I'm going to be able to use fire to do a ton of fire magic, or I can use fire as my dump key for me to just throw it away. Like if I want to cast Pass Without Trace again, that's going to be an earth spell, and all this mana would get shunted over to the side because I'm not using it currently until I decide to add it back to my pool. So if I wanted to cast Pass Without Trace again as an earth key spell, then I'm going to again trigger my 1 earth, and because I have so much fire, it's easy for me just to throw some fire into it. I can now cast Pass Without Trace. And again, anytime I finish a short or a long rest, I can change out all the mana, all the key I have in my pool. And when I finish a long rest, I can switch out all the disciplines that I have prepared. So that creates an interesting idea. Let's say I am 2nd level, and I don't actually at 2nd level I don't actually have my tradition chosen yet. So I technically don't have any. I can depict it as elemental key if I want, but technically it's still generic. And generic key, I mean, like if I want to do Stunning Strike, for example, that is not an elemental discipline. It is a generic monk feature. So I can use any combination of mana or any mana I want. Water key, fire key, earth key, air key. All of it works fine for Stunning Strike. I can use any of it. If I wanted to do Flurry of Blows, I could burn any one of these keys. It doesn't matter. In future editions, like for example, when we build out the Shadow Monk, using, say, let's go here real quick, and blip, blip. Let's look at the other map. Let's go to back. Now we're looking at the color magic paradigm. So let's go back here. If I'm using the color magic paradigm, it doesn't use Earth Key. It uses, going back to the map, or back to the list, it uses blue, red, and green color magic. So we have blue key, we have red key, and we have green key. So if I wanted to cast Pass Without Trace, let's go to Pass Without Trace. Where is that? It's a second level ability. Second level discipline, Pass Without Trace. There you are. That is a green discipline. So I'm going to have to spend green key to use it. And it requires 2 key, because it's second level. So 1 green key to access green magic. And then again, fire, or in this case, now that if we're using like in Ravnica or Strixhaven or Theros, or any setting that you wanted to use the color magic paradigm instead of elemental key, you've got a lot of red. So red is the easiest for you as a dump stat for you to throw away to empower other abilities. You've got 2 key, 1 is green, 1 is red. You only needed 1 green key to access green magic. So now you can cast Pass Without Trace, and it's burned. And again, when you finish a short or long rest, you can recycle all of your mana, and you could keep your pool the same, or you could decide that you aren't looking to use fire at all, but you're expecting to need a lot of green, so you just pour on a bunch of green. So this approaches just the last comments on this before we end this segment and we get ready for another one. At low levels, when you're third level and you gain access to Way of the Four Elements, it's half your monk level plus your wisdom modifier. So let's say at third level it's going to round down, so you're going to have 1 discipline at third level plus your wisdom modifier. Let's say your wisdom is 4. Let's say you have a plus 4, an 18 wisdom. So you have a plus 4 bonus, plus the 1 that you got from being third level. You have a total of 5 disciplines, right? So currently that would mean at second level you would only have, didn't realize I flubbed that there, sorry. At second level you would only have access to, you can only use 1 key at a time, right? It just happens that all the abilities that are at second level as a generic monk, like Step of the Wind, Flurry of Blows, all that stuff only costs 1 key, the same as a first level spell. So very simple, very efficient for you to use. And since you aren't actually a Way of the Four Elements yet, it doesn't matter what color. In this case, using color mana, it doesn't matter what color you use, it's all the same. And that remains true moving forward. Even at 20th level, if you want to use Flurry of Blows, doesn't matter what color you use. You just use 1 key and bam, Flurry of Blows, no problem. But at third level, when you gain access to your disciplines, you only have at third level you would have you would only have 3 key. So you can't have 4 elements at the same time because you only have 3 keys. So you have to make choices. So you could go with, say, 3 blue, or you could go with 1 blue, 1 red, 1 green. In this instance, because it's the 5 color mana paradigm, and there's only 3 colors that are being used in the color mana paradigm system, you could at third level have 1 for each element, so you could have a lot more diversity. But if we switch back to let's go back to the maps and background here, and let's go to back. Let's switch back to the elemental paradigm. Again, you'd only use 1 per campaign. You're either using color magic, you're using generic key, or you're using elemental key. It's your choice. But that's a decision that you want to make when you're making your character, and you talk to your DM about what kind of aesthetics do you want in your campaign. And then you can decide, well, do I want it just to be generic and flavor only, so I'm using generic key? Or do I want the added mechanical complexity that I get from using elemental key? So at third level, you only have 3 key, and if you're using 4 elements, that means you can only pick 3 out of 4 elements. So let me go ahead and grab this up. Like, you might choose to have 1 air, 1 earth, 1 fire, and no water. But as we discussed previously, as soon as you burn through all the key, like if you use your 1 point of water, that would be down here, not up there, sorry. If you use your 1 point of water mana, water key, to use a first level water discipline, you now no longer have access to your water disciplines until you finish a short rest. So that means that at third level, even though you might be able to select a lot of different disciplines to learn, if you're using devoted key, you have to be smart about what am I going to use and how often do I expect to use them. It may be more realistic that, like right now, if I'm in a dungeon and I'm expecting to fight a bunch of stuff, maybe today I only want to prepare fire disciplines and I only want to have fire key so that I have access to, what is that? Oh, how'd you get turned sideways? You silly little thing. Let's turn you sideways up. You probably want to have access to 3 key at third level. That's all the same discipline, so that you can guarantee you're going to be able to use all of your discipline on fire disciplines if you want, using your fire key. So you would pick, if you have 4 disciplines that you can learn at third level because of your or 5. The example we used was a third level monk with a 18 wisdom is 5 disciplines that you can prepare. This leans back to our second episode where we talked about cantrips. It would be smart to prepare a bunch of cantrips. Maybe you prepare 2 or 3 cantrips of different colors, because you don't have to spend any key to use cantrips. You could have earth, you could have fire, you can have water, and air. You could have all 4 elements present as cantrips. And then since you have 5, you could spend the last discipline that you could prepare, and you could perhaps, maybe you want to learn either Burning Hands or Fangs of the Fire Serpent. Fangs of the Fire Snake. So maybe you want to go with, let's say you go with Burning Hands. So now when you go back to your key pool, you could cast Burning Hands 3 times if you don't spin it on Flurry of Blows or you don't spin it on Stunning Strike. You could cast Burning Hands 3 times, because every time you cast Burning Hands, it costs you 1 fire key, and 1 fire key, and 1 fire key, until you're out. And then you refresh, and you still have Burning Hands as your only prepared as your only prepared discipline that requires keys. So sensibly, you would go back and you would, when you regain your mana, you would devote all of that key. When you regain all your key, you would devote that key specifically to fire, because Burning Hands at third level is the only discipline that you prepared that requires key. So, but then you also still have various cantrips that could be, like, maybe you have Ray of Frost, and you have maybe Shocking Grasp, and you have maybe Gust. Is going to allow you to act as though you're the avatar and you have access to all of these different elemental effects, even though you've devoted all your key today, right now, only to fire. And as you gain levels and you have more disciplines and you have a larger stack of key, you can choose to stay funneled into 1, maybe 2 colors, or 2 elements specifically, or you can diversify. Maybe you know that at the beginning of the day you want to have water. You want to have some water key prepared because you're going to do some water-based overland travel. So preparing some elemental, some water disciplines makes sense, and then you devote some of your mana pool to water. And then you also know that by the time you get done with that movement and you get to the dungeon that you're wanting to go into, you're going to want to focus on earth and fire techniques. So then, you've already prepared at the beginning of the day some water for your water adventure, and then for later in the day, the earth and the fire disciplines to prepare for the later half of the adventure. And then when you get done with your water travel, you take a short rest. And then when you embark into the dungeon, your short rest allows you to devote all of your ki to earth and fire so that you can make use of your earth and fire disciplines. So there's this devoting your ki is a way to not only deepen the aesthetics that you have for how you're depicting your character as, say, Fire Nation or Water Nation or the Avatar, but the ki pool that you choose not only leans into that narrative of what type of ki you're channeling to cast these different effects, but it's also a way of reining in. Even though I can choose all these different disciplines, I can prepare them many more than I could know from what the player's handbook limits me to. By design, the ki pool is going to limit what my options are. It pushes you towards learning towards being devoted to one element. But the cantrips still leave all of them open to you for narrative effect. But the mechanics of it requires you to have a deeper level of strategy. And later in the book, you're going to see how using that strategy and using specific ki devoted to different elements rewards you. Right now, it's a penalty. You have less flexibility in how you can cast, but later you're going to see how it rewards you for making those decisions. And that's going to be another episode, and that's going to be our next when we start talking about the new features that we gain using these variant rules. So I'm hoping to see you there. Like, subscribe, grab me on Twitter, check out the link below. All these books are 100% preview, so if you like them and love them, you can buy them to show support. If you take a look at them and you decide, this isn't your cup of tea, it's not going to cost you money to buy and look at them. You can just, let's check out Spellpoint Warlocks real quick. Let's check out the free preview. What's Bill got going on with Spellpoint Warlocks? Spellpoint Warlocks is awesome. If you are not using it, you should at least look at it. It provides both calibration for the DMG as well as calibration for using 5-color mana Spellpoint variant rules. And it goes into the flexibility of having spell points for your pack magic and your Mystic Arcanum as opposed to the spell slot in the 1 per day system that is default to the player's handbook. If you go to the DMG, if you're a spell point enthusiast and you're frustrated that Wizards of the Coast only dedicated a half page to this amazing system, this book is going to provide you all the mechanical depth that you need to play a Spellpoint Warlock. Highly recommend it. It's pay what you want. You don't have to pay for it. The preview is 100% free preview, so you can always read the whole thing anyway. I never want you to have to pay for one of these books if you aren't 100% sold that this was worth your effort, worth my effort to build, and worth your time to use. I'd love to have your support if it's worth it. So if it's something that you don't value, don't buy it. And if you do buy it, make sure, please, make it a 5-star rating so other people realize how much you love it. It's already an Electrum bestseller, even though it's pay what you want. Support the cause, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all there on the next visit. So I'll see you soon. Cheers.